Folks, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Len Thompson, and I am Broadcom's Mainframe Division Community Manager. I want to welcome you to today's Broadcom Mainframe Software Community webcast, hybrid integrations connecting mainframe AIOps to distributed and cloud. First, before I hand you off to Greg Shriver today, who's going to be our presenter, a couple of things I need to go over with you. First, if you have questions along the way, we always want you to feel free to share those with us. Just put them right in the questions box under the GoToWebinar control panel along the right side of your screen. We'll get through as many of those as we can during our time together today. If for some reason we don't answer everything, either we run out of time or something requires a little more research, I will make sure that Greg and the team get everything they need to follow up with you. Secondly, we are recording today's session. That's why your lines are all muted. And the replay will be available probably sometime later today, but worst case tomorrow morning out in the communities. So if you have someone you want to share it with, please feel free to point them there. And the last thing for me is that we're always trying to make sure these sessions are valuable. So with that in mind, a short survey is going to pop up at the end of the webcast. If you could stick around and give us some feedback, I know everyone involved on the Broadcom side would appreciate it. That's it for me. So take it away, Greg.
Thank you, Len. So good morning and welcome, everybody. I hope everyone's having a great day. Again, my name is Greg Shriver, and I am a software architect for Broadcom in the Mainframe Systems Division. In my role, I have the privilege to work with some pretty cool technologies, and we are pretty excited to share some of these with you today. So I guess starting straight out, I mean, the topic here is pretty broad, you know, and I wanted to kind of level set everyone and also focus in at the same time. Because what in the world are hybrid integrations? So I've defined this as connections between solutions, software stacks, products, or vendors. And if you take that definition, I mean, kind of like hybrid cloud, I mean, it's very similar to the hybrid cloud definition as well. But with hybrid integrations, it's just any integration or any connection between solutions, software stacks, whatever. And if you think about that, that is very, very broad statement. That could mean almost anything. So we don't want to be here forever. And we have looked at, you know, quite a few integrations, which we'll share with you a little bit later. But what I want to do is kind of bring you in a little bit and scope it into observability. So we're focused on observability. And that is, you know, what we're hearing from customers as what their challenges are as well. So basically, what we're hearing, you know, we've heard this more and more from customers, particularly recently. You know, we hear customers over and over saying, hey, you know, we're either breaking down our monolithic applications or, you know, we're sharding off pieces of them and deploying them somewhere else. I mean, you know, nobody's picking up applications and rewriting them somewhere else, or at least not many. But, you know, they are perhaps like lifting and shifting and picking pieces up and deploying them in other places. There's also, you know, a lot of customers who are, you know, breaking down monolithic applications into microservices applications as well. So the point here is that, you know, with monolithic applications, things like observability is a little bit easier when you pick those applications up and you break them apart into pieces, say maybe microservices, and then you deploy those pieces across, you know, some stays on the mainframe or lives on the mainframe, some goes to distributed, some are SaaS, some go to the cloud. I mean, as you break down these applications and stick them in and deploy them in different places, all of a sudden, I mean, there are a lot of advantages to doing that, but there are also some disadvantages. So just like everything is a trade-off, right? One of those trade-offs happens to be that observability is more difficult when you have your application spattered across, you know, multiple services. And these services, you know, come together, you know, and for customers to understand the health of the applications and their lines of businesses, it requires that you have visibility into each of those decomposed pieces, right? So So, and I'm saying visibility here. I mean, I'm sure, hopefully, we've all heard the term observability, but I sort of view that observability as really visibility into like what is going on. How can I expose the inner workings of this application or the infrastructure so that I know what's going on and where? And so let's talk a little bit about observability and visibility and contrast that between distributed cloud and the mainframe. So hopefully you've heard a lot about observability in the distributed and cloud space, and that observability it's possible. There are many approaches, solutions. There are a whole bunch of vendors. We're going to show you one solution today, but there are scores of them. There are dozens, literally dozens, and part of our challenge is to basically connect with all of those, because you as a customer, right, you may have chosen one or more of these as your sort of distributed observability tool. So on the distributed side, I think they're pretty far along with that, right? And so then we get into the mainframe. So I would argue that the mainframe, now I've been on this platform for 30 years, probably like many of you, and maybe I have a bigoted view, but I happen to believe that the mainframe is an extremely observable platform. I mean, you can get, there's data and telemetry for just about everything. So there absolutely is visibility into the mainframe tier, but if you step back and look at it, not from someone who has 30 years of depth and experience in the platform, but somebody who might be walking up new to it, or somebody who maybe not has grown up in the mainframe. I would also argue that that the mainframe is visible and observable, but it isn't as accessible as some of these other platforms and some of the other observability solutions. It's also not as similar, like how you look at things on the mainframe is different, and all of you know that as well. All righty. So our goal here is to increase mainframe observability, and what we're really looking to do is bring the mainframe, the observability that exists on the mainframe, and bring it to the rest of the enterprise, right? And hopefully bring this data and this telemetry data into these other observability solutions. And hopefully, we'll see that as we go forward today with the demo that we're going to show. So these are hill statements. And I'm calling them goals here, but basically we refer to them as hill statements, but they're essentially goals or pain points or challenges. And so we have a couple of them here. So in order to solve problems quickly, systems programmers need to mine multiple logs from multiple domains and platforms in minutes, not hours or days. Now, I think when we talked a little bit about a couple slides ago, we said, hey, customers are breaking down, maybe not breaking down, but they're deploying pieces of their applications in different spots. And because of that, you have pieces of your applications that comprise your business services. They're emitting log and telemetry data in many, many places. So in order for a systems programmer to see what's going on, they may have the situation where they need to mine multiple logs, right? And sometimes that's not easy to do. You may not have access to it, or you may not know where all of them are. And then even if you do know where all of them are, you have to basically sort of manually go from this log and say, oh, okay, it went to here, and then go to another log, right? Doing that manually across multiple logs is time consuming and troublesome. The other one, the second here, the new to mainframe L1 and L2 engineers need a visual. This really speaks to the accessibility, whereas the observability on and the visibility on the mainframe, just while it's accessible to people that are very seasoned on the platform, it's not as accessible for someone who is not, a dyed-in-the-wool mainframe person. And then that third one is systems programmers may not care about the total volumes of messages, but they do, they need a way to focus in on the most important messages, right? So not only do we have a situation where we have logs that are sprayed all over the place, right? But we also don't want to look at all those logs. We just want to look at the relevant pieces within them. Now, hopefully, this slide looks very, very similar to the last one. And if you can read it on your own, but basically I've kind of changed the persona from systems programmers and L1 and L2 experts, right? L1 and L2 engineers to system reliability engineers, right? The last slide was very, had very mainframe terms in it. This one is really across the entire enterprise. So we're not talking about just the mainframe. We're talking about across the entire enterprise, including the mainframe. And in order for us to do that, we're going to have to be able to bring this data, and consolidate these logs, across all of these platforms and services into one place. So just to pause on this for a second. This is kind of, I don't know, it's a summary slide, really. This is really, this kind of captures sort of the essence of this entire pitch, right? What we're trying to do here is, you can see the red, the blue, and the green. That's all log data, and that yellow is the time index for that log data. And what we really want to do is we want to merge and consolidate that log data, or telemetry data, time series data, whatever it is. We want to bring that data together, and we want to bring it in one central, at least logically central place. And this can be multiple logs within the mainframe. You could have stuff, spread across in syslog. You could have other stuff in Unix system services log files, and it could also include, logs from Kubernetes clusters running on x86, right, running off platform, but where all of that. But the point is that we're bringing together all of this data, bringing together data from the mainframe, bringing together data, off of the mainframe as well. So with that, I'd like to drop out of here and show you a little bit of what we've been playing with. Alrighty, so I'm going to refresh this. Okay, so before we get into this, I just want to kind of orient you to the screen. I mentioned at the outset that there are dozens of these tools. One of them happens to be Elastic, right? Elastic is an observability tool, and it's got, tons of features. I am going to resist the temptation to show you all of the features in Elastic because, well, just because. There's no, what I'd really like to do, but I do want to take a second to at least orient everyone to the screen, right? So I don't know if you can see this in the upper right hand, there's a time picker, and you can see that what it says right now is the last 15 minutes to the left of this refresh button. So basically what we're showing you is data that is in an Elasticsearch database that has a timestamp of within the past 15 minutes. The other thing we might see here is there's a filter, so you can filter. There's all kinds of filtering and searching that you can do here. We will show you some of that just to demonstrate the power of and being able to bring all this data together. And then you'll see this time histogram here, which is basically it's a histogram or a count of Elasticsearch documents over time. And you'll see in the x-axis you have the time, and in the y-axis you have the number of Elasticsearch documents. Everything that comes into Elasticsearch is an Elasticsearch document. And you can see those Elasticsearch documents down here below the histogram. And the columns with the time, we happen to use, but one of the connective pieces, which we'll show you in a bit, is Kafka. So we've got the Kafka topic, the host ID, or in our case, in this case, it's CA32, which is one of our development LPARs, and then a log message. And you can see that this is a message that looks like it came from the mainframe, and indeed it did. It's coming from something from Ops MVS called OpsLog. So that's kind of your 25-cent tour of Elastic, and that's hopefully all we're going to really get into in terms of Elastic itself. But I do want to point you to one thing here. So I'm going to refresh again, and you can see that. So this is all the data that we've brought in to Elasticsearch in the last 15 minutes. And over here on the left, at the left part of the histogram, you can see that I've got 36,000, almost, maybe not 37, but over 36,000 Elasticsearch documents. So whatever it is, whether it's OpsLog, OpsLog records from, one of our LPARs, or whether it is a log message from a Kubernetes cluster, all of that together is in the last 15 minutes, and these are just test systems, and we only have like 2 LPARs pumping data here, plus 1 Kubernetes cluster, services that are sitting on 1 Kubernetes cluster. So, this isn't a lot of data. However, for a human, 36,000 records is a lot of data. So, but we're bringing it all together. So think back to the 3 hill statements, or the 3 goal statements, or the 3 use cases that I shared. The first 2 centered around the accessibility and needing to go across a whole bunch of logs, right, to find the information that I'm looking for. So I think I think hopefully we're demonstrating that we've solved, or at least partially addressed, those first 2 use cases. That third one is, hey, as an SRE, I want to be able to focus in on the messages that are most important. I don't have time to look at 36,000 messages. I agree. So that's, I want to just show you the power of just a free-form search here. And I'm going to search for error. And when I search on error, notice that in the last 15 minutes, we had, 36,000 Elasticsearch documents. And by searching for error, just a free-form search, it is showing you it reduced that solution set from 36,000 Elasticsearch documents to 61. Now, in fairness, I think we could do a better job here. There's other things that we can do with this data, and we may cover some of that a little bit later. But, as an SRE walking up to this, if someone asks me, says, hey, Bob, or hey, Greg, it looks like there might be a problem, can you check? Okay, so yeah, I might walk up and I might start paging through some of these errors, and you can see, okay, so I don't know what this error is, but it looks like it came from one of our Kubernetes services running on Kubernetes. I've got some messages that contain the text error that are coming out of CA32 and CA11, those LPARs. But the point is that it reduces my solution set, from a really large number to a smaller number. And again, I think that there's further refinement that we can do to make this even better. And hopefully we will do that. And would really love to partner with you, to figure out what would be the most useful for you. Maybe not Elastic, maybe something else, maybe something that we do internally and ship on our own. But we would love to would love to partner with you on how we can make this easier and better for your staff. So let me step back a little bit. So we talked about, we've got all of these Elasticsearch documents, right? And we talked about so to go back to my 36,000 records. Oh, now it's 39,000. Okay. So anyway, I wanna show you a little bit about some visualization. So now that we've got all of this data in an Elasticsearch database, well, what can we do with it, right? So you can do, and these are very, very simple and rudimentary and crude visualizations that you can do, you know, with a tool like Elastic. And as I mentioned, there are scores of these. You can do this with any of them. It doesn't have to be Elastic. So let me show you the overall. So we created a quick view of this. So we've got an overall dashboard here. And so again, we're showing you whatever we've done in the Elasticsearch documents for the last 15 minutes. And then I've got like a stacked vertical bar here, so you can see that most of these records are actually coming from OpsLog and only from 2L pars. And then we do have this. This is actually by Kafka topic, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But this Kafka topic is log messages, and these happen to be log messages that are coming from microservices that are running in a Kubernetes cluster that we're working on for some of the stuff that we're developing. So we're basically streaming that in via Kafka to Elasticsearch, and so you can see that, you know, a smaller portion of these records are coming from Kubernetes, Linux off platform. We also have some time series data. You can see the CA products TSD. We have, you know, made many enhancements to our products to basically harvest and push time series data periodically across some middleware, which we'll show you. And that time series data is currently consumed by the MOI product, Mainframe Operational Intelligence. And we're also, you know, consuming it here and jamming it into Elasticsearch. And then we have another one. This is another topic. It was just convenient to handle it this way. It probably isn't worth talking about what it means something to us, but I guess I would ask you to sort of extrapolate that. If you have something that is of interest to you that would be of value to have in that consolidated logging, you know, in context with everything else. This is a way, or we're basically sort of piloting a way to show you how to do that. And then so there's the histogram on the left, and you can see a donut chart on the right that basically converts that and lays it into a donut and shows you sort of the breakdown by, in this case, Kafka topic. Okay. So I want to show you one other visualization that we can do with this data, and I'm going to show you the OpsLog dashboard. So now we saw in the last visualization that we have a lot of OpsLog data, with data coming from OpsLog, and so this again is a 25-cent tour, and it's kind of a crude visualization. It was pretty easy to put this together, to be honest. I mean, most of the work lies upon getting the data in the right way, and in the right format, and enriched in the right way to to be able to fuel some of these visualizations. But once that data is there, you can do it with pretty much any tool, including Elastic. But just to give you an idea, over here on the right, what we're breaking down here, this is a visualization showing OpsLog events by message ID. So in each OpsLog event, there is a message ID, and you can see that broken down over here on the right. So we've got some sysview message, some sysview messages, some network messages, some USS messages, some JES messages, and we can also do filtering here. You'll notice I have some filters up here that says not from this job name, not this IEF 196I. Let's pull them out. And so I want to resist the urge to show you all the features and functions within Elastic, because it really doesn't matter. You can do it with any of the tools. The real point here is the data, right? The data that's coming, and being able to show ops log events by event type. There are multiple event types, not just messages, USS processes. So we've got another quick visualization here. We can show you, that most of the ops log events, at least in the last 15 minutes, have come from 32, the LPAR named CA32, and a much smaller percentage have come from another LPAR called CA11. And then we have it broken down by, these ops log events by job name. So that's pretty much, just a quick visualization. So what I'd like to do, since we are on ops log, I would like to kind of go back to the pitch for a second. All right. So, and this is admittedly a teaser, right? We have only, the ops MVS team has been, playing and tinkering with this idea for a while, but we've only recently, actually gotten some of the data in a better form to where it can be leveraged by tools like Elastic. And so these are, we had that last slide, we had that last slide where we talked about some of the pain points for, for SREs or systems programmers. And this is another pain point that we hear from customers, pretty often, actually. And this is, mainframe customers have, years and years and years of automation that they've invested in to react to messages or whatever that are, that are emanating from syslog, for example, right? And some of that, some of that automation is old. Some of it might not actually be running, or it might not be having, the intended effect, or, not even really sure whether it's running, and if it is running, what did it do? How often is it running? And the Ops MVS team, I think, recognized that there was an opportunity here to be able to get some more information, to really extract more information about automation that's running, right? And this is early, and this is really a teaser. But we just can't resist, because we're kind of excited to share this. So I'm going to drop back into Elastic for a second. And I'm going to show you, again, this is a very crude visualization. But in that ops log data that ops log is sending, right, and we're consuming, there's information in there about from those messages which rules fired and how often. And what you see here is, in the past 15 minutes, which rules have fired and how often have they fired. So over here on the right, you can see. So some of these, honestly, they're test rules. At least I'm assuming they're test rules. I'm assuming this USS count, one of the ops log events happens to be a USS event. And I suspect that there's a rule that fires when that happens. But, and we're seeing basically the visualization of how often that rule has fired or executed in the past 15 minutes. Now, I am not an expert on this data. The Ops MVS team is an expert on this data. And I guess, so I guess, watch this space for maybe for more exciting stuff in the future. So you can see here, there's a couple other visualizations, this AOF rule frequency. You can see a USS count. We can even see that in the histogram, that USS count has happened quite a bit, right? Or has fired a bunch. We can see rule executions by rule set name, and also the rule return codes, which govern, and again, this is something that the ops team can speak to. But Anyway, I'm resisting the urge to go too deep because I'm kind of out of my element here. But all I can say is kind of watch this space, because this is something that we're kind of excited about. We've heard customers express pain points surrounding this, and we're excited to see what the ops MVS team can do with this going forward. So, all right. So now that you've had the 25-cent tour of Elastic, what are we actually doing? So I wanted to give you just sort of a high-level view, and this really is a high-level view, but these are some of the connective tissues, or the technical underpinnings of what we've been showing you. So over on the mainframe, we've actually invested a ton, right, in API enabling our products. Many of our products now provide, are providers of REST endpoints, right? So, and we can go through the API mediation layer or direct, right, and invoke those endpoints for various to perform various functions, monitoring, management, whatever it is. We have also invested in updating our products to push. I think we saw in the last that there's time series data, that we're pushing time series data out, and that is actually streaming through some middleware that you see there on the lower right. And we're pushing that. We're basically streaming that from pushing it and streaming it from the products through this middleware, then out to a Kafka cluster, right? And in fact, in our test system, we only have a single Kafka node, but I mean, clearly you can scale that out, and there are many instances of customers that have scaled that out to handle much more load than we are. And so once it's in Kafka, right, once we have that data in Kafka, so we've got the data coming from the mainframe going to Kafka. We've got data coming from over here in the upper left, our Kubernetes cluster, with daemon set with Fluentd. So, and he's pushing that log data, basically the standard error, standard out. That error, he's basically pushing that log data into a topic on Kafka. And then, of course, we're pulling that data using something called Logstash. We use we pull that data using Logstash, and then enrich it in some simple ways, and then dump it into Elasticsearch. And then from there, well, that's how we're getting the data in to show you the visualizations that we showed you. So so just to kind of step back a little bit, we talked in the beginning that hybrid integrations is pretty big, and it is. And many of these, we've done a lot of these. We've done actually all of these integrations. I haven't personally done all of them, but we've already demonstrated, pushing data to Splunk. Zaid Alatar actually has an article on Medium on how to do this and how to grab sysview data and jam it into Splunk. So there's an integration that has already been done. We're already doing the Elasticsearch. We've done multiple iterations and continue to work on ServiceNow. We've done integrations with ServiceNow, with Ops MVS, and other products as well. Up here on the right, our MTT, our technology team, has done a fair amount of work with integrating with various and sundry products from an open telemetry perspective, mostly focusing on tracing. We didn't show you much tracing today. We showed you more logs and metrics, but tracing is definitely something that we'd love to have on our radar. And we have done some work with it, but I suspect that hopefully we will do more of that, and maybe we'll do more of that in the future. We've also done, obviously we've done Kafka and NiFi. those are kind of outside the scope of the talk today, but we can, if those are kind of neat tools, and would be happy to discuss with you whether they might be, applicable for you or not. And this other one here is a company called Edge Delta, which is kind of an interesting, I encourage you to check it out. I mean, one of the, they have kind of an interesting approach to, an interesting alternative to the traditional consolidated observability systems. So we've played a bit with that too. So we may come back and show you some more of that in the future. So with that, this is like a kid in a candy store kind of slide. Like, really, where would we like to go? Most, I think I mentioned in some of the prior slides that a lot of the work in this is, getting the data in the right form and enriching it and normalizing it in a way that is useful once you get it to these other tools. And so, admittedly, we've probably spent more time on the mainframe, trying to get this data, because keep in mind, again, we're trying to get mainframe observability and telemetry data and get it to join the rest of the world in the rest of the enterprise landscape. And in order to do that, it has to be, it's more useful if it's in a certain form. So, as we can use Logstash to do some of that, maybe not normalization, but do some normalization and some data enrichment. And then once we have it back in Kafka, we can, in our case, in the demo that you saw today, we showed you how we solved, a few of those pain points and challenges using Elasticsearch. But as we've mentioned multiple times in this webcast, you can do this with, dozens of tools. And we have not looked at all of these in a lot of depth, but would like to look at more. And what we'd really like to know is, which ones are you using? Which ones would help you the most to basically mainstream the mainframe into, bring the mainframe into the rest of the enterprise landscape. And with that, I think I am finished. So I'd like to thank you all for your time, and back to you, Len.
Thanks, Greg. Very interesting and informative presentation. Folks, if you have any questions for Greg, I don't see any right now, but if you have any, please do put them right in the questions box and we'll get through those. I will also take this opportunity to remind you that we do have that post-event survey that's going to pop up when we close. There's also a place in there where you can ask a question if you think of something, as we're closing. But for right now, we'll give everyone another 30 seconds or so to type out their questions. And I think that's it for me. So we'll give everyone a chance to see if there's any questions, and then if not, we'll go ahead and wrap up. All right, I don't see any questions coming in, folks. If you do have questions, please do put them in that survey box that's going to pop up here in a second. Greg, thank you very much, and to everyone who joined us today, we really appreciate your time. We know there are a lot of virtual events still happening, so we appreciate you giving us some of your time today. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.